I think it's already full. We'll start, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have with us Dr. Prashant Gupta. He's a professor of Operations Management and Strategic Management at Jaipur Institute of Management, Jaipur. Sir carries almost 30 plus years of vast experience in industry and academia. Sir has worked with organizations like HMT, has worked with RICO in senior positions, and he's been serving into academia for quite some time now. He has consulted on projects of operations and supply chain management to so many organizations for so many years. So we thought that today, when in your business venture journey, it's an important aspect that we need to understand how do we manage our supply chain and what are the important aspects of supply chain that has to be covered. So I requested sir to join us today for this program, and thank you so much, sir, for joining here today.
Thank you, Dr.
Over
Shen.
to you. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I can straight away go to the test. I don't know.
It's not moving.
There's some issue here. Yeah. Can you see on the?
I can see the first slide.
Yeah. So I hope the participants also will be able to see.
Yes.
Yeah. If you can confirm that, then I'll start.
Yeah, I can see the operations and supply chain management and your name written.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and it's my pleasure to be part of this program. Promoting entrepreneurship has always been very close to me. So, though whether in industry or otherwise, I have been directly, indirectly involved in such activities. And after spending about 29 years in industry, where I was involved with the development of various projects and then later on production of watches. Last 20 years of my management education, I have my areas have been the operations, supply chain, and to some extent entrepreneurship related activities. So here in this brief time of about 60 minutes, I'll try to at least the basic aspects of operations and supply chain, which we need to take care. So the broader and the holistic aspects, that's what I'll try to cover, so that some of you who are already in business or who are in the process of starting business or who are planning to start some of their own businesses, small or big, it may help you in making those decisions. The most important part in any business is that you make a right selection of product or service. And looking into whatever vision you may have for your own organization or objectives you may have for your own organization. If you want it to be of a sustainable nature, which is successful, it's very important that you get into right product and services, and also, of course, the right customer segment. But let's see some of the top 10 companies in the country. We'll try to relate with the type of products or services they are in. This is the latest figure as far as Indian companies are concerned, and revenue wise, if you see, Reliance Industries, Indian Oil Corporation, ONGC, State Bank, BPCL, Tata Motors, Rajesh Exports, TCS, ICICI Bank, Class and Tubro. Now, if you see the product or services they are in, if you see about four companies are into oil sector, and they've been able to generate such high revenues because anyway it is a product which has continuous demand, and naturally profits or not, but then revenues will always be there. Then if you see some of these services like State Bank of India and ICICI Bank, so banking industry again, they will always be in demand. So these two also we find in top 10 companies. Then some in automobile sector. So Tata Motors, we find, so another automobile again, like any other product, after the basic needs are fulfilled, motors, people would like to have motors. Then Rajesh Exports, this interesting organization in this top 10, in which represents the type of interest, especially the Indian women have in the jewelry. So they are into the jewelry business. So it's a combination of earlier, if you had seen the list 10 years back, most of the industries would be in product category. But now we are seeing many of those who are in service sector, they are entering into these top 10 companies. Even if you see the profit wise again, you'll find that there are so many service companies. Reliance Industries again, Indian Oil. These are the two, and ONGC. These are the two oil companies again, if you see from the profit point of view. But then some of the consulting organization, that's what the future is in TCS, Infosys, and of course the services like HDFC Bank, SDFC, etc. So it's very important that we do a right selection of the industry or product which or service which we want to get into. This just to indicate that the number of the share of women leaders in the Fortune 500 Indian companies is increasing year by year. And this is the latest data where 29 companies, though the number of companies may be small if you see the absolute number of 500 numbers, but then those number of companies are increasing. So there are 29 such companies amongst the top 500 companies who have women leaders with executive powers. So the point I'm trying to make through this slide is that women are coming into business. So as far as the product or service selection is goes, let us see how the startups have been behaving. What type of industries the startups, though you would have discussed in this program, but maybe a few minutes will spend on that. So what are the type of startups which have become successful in last 5-6 years when there's been a lot of emphasis and facilities from the government side? So at the moment we have number of Indian unicorns. Unicorn means whose valuation is more than $1 billion. So number of such Indian companies, the startups is more than 50, and I understand it is 52 now. Then this year itself, in the present year 2021, in spite of all the problems we are having and the setbacks we are having, 11 new unicorns have added into this list of 50. 11 new unicorns in last little over 4 months. And some of the sectors where it's for the first time that such startups have come and which have become $1 billion companies are health tech, social commerce, and e-pharmacy. This is just to give an indication which are the directions where the startups are becoming profitable. And there's a lot of money also coming from various sources, which again you would have discussed in detail. So these 50 odd startups by themselves may raise about more than about $14 billion in the year 2021. So as I mentioned, the popular startups where the businesses have seen success are e-commerce, financial technology, the fintech businesses, and some of those which are providing day-to-day, which we call as enterprise tech, which are more of the places where they connect the customers and the service providers. So if you see, so e-commerce, if you see some of the top unicorns, Flipkart, Snapdeal, FirstCry, Inframarket, Udaan, Paytm, and others. So there's a lot of scope in e-commerce sector, e-commerce area where we can come up with our own enterprises. Fintech is one, which has a lot of opportunities now. Some of the successful examples have been Paytm, PhonePe, Zerodha, Razorpay, Pine Labs, etc. And enterprise category, we have unicorn categories like Zenot in companies like Zenoti, Freshworks, Zoho, Druva, and iCertis, and some of the others. This just to indicate the areas in which you may like to have your own enterprise. This is the breakup of the 50 odd. Now, as I mentioned, it has become 52 now. So 52 odd unicorns. So this will give you some idea of which areas you should get into. Fintech 18 companies out of these 52, e-commerce 8, consumer services 7, health tech 6, enterprise 2, and then 2 and 1 in logistics, media, ed tech, transport, deep tech, agri-tech, and real estate. So this gives you an idea if you have not yet decided, and these are the companies, which area you should get into. Now, while you get into business or you are already in business, let us see what are those important aspects which are so important today for being successful. So, and we have to take care of these changes in the environment. Technology, you have seen from the type of unicorns also, which have been coming in last 5-6 years and more so in last 2 years. Lot of changes in the technology, the way the businesses are done, the e-commerce, of course, and even the payments, fintech companies. So which were almost non-existent, almost say just about 7-8 years back, and they are that's the area where a lot of opportunities are there, and the projections are it may be almost $200 billion in the fintech area. So rapid technological changes, and then it's not just that we are making innovations, how we are able to convert those innovations into viable businesses. So that's what we call as technology diffusions. That also the time period we now take to diffuse a new technology has become shorter and shorter. That's why the technological changes also are fast, and they are quite dramatic because of the ICT. All these, some of these services, whether they are outsourcing, the business process outsourcing, and e-commerce companies and all, that has become possible because of the development in information and communication technology. So just one more point I would like to make here. There's almost omnipresent use of mobiles as far as providing various products or services are concerned. So today, if we need to succeed, it's very important that we can do that business online and through mobiles. Now, there are four important aspects, if you'd see in the slide, which are so important for being successful and for sustaining your success. The flexibility. Flexibility in not only in the product. So a product may be very popular today, but a new product comes which serves the same need. So you may have to change. So which is little difficult, but what quantities? So the demand maybe this month it is quite high, next month it may be low for various reasons. So are we able to make those changes in the production capacity, both in increasing direction and decreasing direction? The time which the customer needs. So sometimes customer may be happy even if you give in 15 days, but sometimes customer may say that I need it in 2 days. So do you again have that flexibility of changing your lead time, reducing your lead time? So flexibility in all these aspects so that you retain your customers. Of course, innovation, new innovation. Speed, as I mentioned, is very important in many of the products and services. How fast you are able to provide a product, how fast you are able to provide a service, has become very important. And integration, whether through the same. So integration may be of various kind. One is the product integration, where the same product serves more than one need. And mobile is the biggest example, where originally it was designed for just a communication purpose, but then it can serve so many other functions. So there's a lot of integration of various other products into this mobile itself, where it can serve needs of different kinds. So that whether you can integrate, so it can apply to, so suppose you are in some textile products. So it's not that you just provide say a cotton textile. You may be specializing in say cotton textile. So the demand tomorrow may be of some other material, some other design. So whether you are able to integrate that in your production capacity. So these are some of the aspects. Now, any operations, we see this as a system. If you see, it's a closed loop type of system where there will be some inputs and which will be converted into some outputs, and we would need continuous feedback from the people who are using this and also people who are converting to further improve on the products. That's a general model which is applicable whether it's a production unit or a service unit, where we now that conversion is a process where you create value for the customer so that he's ready to pay money. Now it's conversion of some raw material into product, usable product, is just one type of those which we call as transformation, which will create value in the mind of people so that they are ready to pay. Let us see which are the other types of conversions or processes or transformations which can create value and for which customers would be ready to pay. But before that, you must be clear what is your core activity and or primary activity, and what are the support activities. And today is very important that you concentrate on your core activity. If you are good in designing a product, you concentrate on design, maybe manufacturing and all other aspects you outsource to somebody else. If you are good in manufacturing, and maybe you have somebody to give you designs, and the logistics part may be given to somebody else. So this value chain, where if you see this typical value chain, there are some primary activities, and this value chain, the type of design you see in this value chain has been designed in context of manufacturing. So there will be some inbound logistics, some conversion processes, operations, outbound logistics, that means from manufacturer to the customer, some marketing activities, and service and sales activities. Then there will be some support activities. If you have to get materials, so some procurement activity. Continuously you have to see that you are updated as far as technology is concerned. So the technology development activities. You have to manage people, so human resource activities. You have to create infrastructure, change infrastructure, change, modify, improve it. So all these are support activities. Now, even out of these main activities, which is your core activities, so it's always better that you concentrate on your core activities. And if all these put together cost you less than what the customer is ready to pay to you, then only you are in a viable business. If you are not able to get the costs covered in the price which customer is ready to pay, then you'll have to think of changing this value chain. How do you reduce on your cost, or how do you create value to the customer so that he's ready to pay a higher price? So both these aspects we will see. So these are some of the ways in which you can enhance value for your product or service. If at the same price you can give a better quality, so higher the quality, better the quality, high is the value for the customer, and he'll be ready to pay a higher price. What type of service you are providing, both pre-sale or pre-providing of service, during sale and after sale. So if you are into selling a product and you promise that your product will stay okay for say 3 years, and if there is any maintenance needed, whether you are having those arrangements to provide those after sales services. So better the service, higher value for the customer, and will come to you even if you are charging little higher price. Of course, lower the cost. So if the same product you are able to provide at a low cost, again, customer will see higher value in that and he'll come to you. And the cycle time, what's the time you take to provide whatever is needed by the customer? So if you are providing faster than your competitor, again, naturally the customer will come to you and he'll see higher value. So these are some of the ways in which you can create value for the customer so that he is ready to pay a price higher than you would get otherwise. Now, these are some of the transformational processes. Now, it depends on the type of business you are in. So we already talked of the physical transformation. That means you are assembling different items or converting different items through assembly or through processing into a finished usable product. So this we call as physical transformation. Then there are various, for example, the various concerts, the cinema and music. So this serves the essential need of a customer. So again, he sees value. So he may not be buying any product, but then he sees certain value because his some sensual need is. So he would like to see a good drama. He would like to see a good movie and maybe listen to good music. Of course, there could be products also along with that. You can have the various types of video cassettes and all. Of course, that age also is gone now that we have all sorts of other means. But then, so this how you can create value. So cinema, you are not getting anything. You are not getting any product. You are just going and seeing, or you are watching on your TV through various streaming agencies, and you are paying for that. Psychological. So again, you may not be getting any product, but then a psychiatrist or a counselor is trying to solve some of your psychological problems. So that's why you pay money to him. So how you are able to serve some certain need, that's what would decide whether customer is ready to pay. Healthcare. So healthcare, a patient comes to a doctor and he treats him or he advises him some treatment, provides some medicine or advises him to take some medicine, or does some uh, procedure, so either an operation. So that's what would create value in the mind of customer or a patient in this case, and he will come to you. Retailing. Now a retailer is not producing anything. So what he is doing is to facilitate the availability of a product for a customer. So either he buys the product from wholesalers or from manufacturer in bulk and then sells it in retail to individual customers. So the customer has the advantage of getting a product in a convenient way. And that's the facility for which he is ready to pay to a retailer, fully knowing that if he buys from a wholesaler or a manufacturer directly, if it is possible, he may get at lower rate. But then that facility of providing that product at his door or at a convenient place for him is the facility for which he's ready to pay. So this we call as exchange type of business. Then of course telecom services, information, location. So some of us may try to or think of having a logistics business, a third party or a fourth party service provider, where you facilitate a manufacturer of a product to supply it to its dealers or retailers or to its individual customers. So what you are trying to do or what you are doing through this facility is that you are transporting goods from one place to another place. So you are not adding any value to the product, but because you are again making it available to a person who is situated away from the manufacturer or the supplier, and for that he is ready to pay. So there are various businesses, there are various people who are getting into this business also of providing the logistics services. Of course, you could have the storage. The advantage, the value you are creating is to store the goods for some time, so that some agri products, say it is grown, you get the it in say March, and it is needed throughout the year, so you store it. So that's the facility you are providing and value you are providing to the customer. and inspection. So you are exporting to some other country. Those people can't come here to inspect every consignment. So they appoint somebody else in India to do inspection and assuring the quality of the product which we are exporting to some other country. So these are some of the ways of these are various types of transformation processes. Now it will depend on what type of business you are trying to give, but you'll have to serve at least one of these. You'll have to adopt one of these ways to serve the needs of the customer. So if you see in context of services, your whole operation system would change depending on what type of service. So there are various ways of classification of service, but this I have shown where the operations systems may completely change depending on the type of service. So the broad classification which this represents is whether the services are directed at people or services are directed at some things, and whether there are some tangible actions and intangible actions. So there could be four combinations. If you see that, if you see those services which are directed at people and there are some tangible actions, maybe healthcare, passenger transportation, beauty salons, restaurants, uh, beauty parlors, hair cutting and all. So some of these services are provided on people, and that's why normally people will have to be there. So you can't transport a person from say Delhi to Bombay unless he is there personally. So your operation system when the people are directly involved will be very much different when the people are not involved. So in this case, so you'll have to design your operation systems accordingly. Then there may be some industries or businesses where they are directed at people, but not many tangible actions. So intangible actions, education industry, coaching industry. Of course, I may clarify here that even every service is a combination of products and services. So there'll be a bunch of, so there may be some pure services where there is hardly any involvement of product, and there may be services where there's very high involvement of product. So education traditionally it will be non-intangible actions, but then there could be various academic or teaching aids which you can provide in the form of presentations or in the form of some recordings and all, which may be tangible. So services also will be a combination of products and services, but these are the where we are not putting the people's bodies are not involved. So education, broadcasting, information services, theaters, museums, and these days you may not be it may not be necessary to be present now that we have those video transmission. Then similar things on products, the goods transportation, repair and maintenance, the janitorial services, laundry services, horticulture services, and the veterinary services. So all these are not in people, but maybe on some objects or animals. So there again, you'll have different type of systems because people are not involved. So you can have a much greater efficiency. Then again on products, the intangible assets. So some of the services like banking, legal, accounting, securities, insurance, etc. So this classification will clearly indicate, depending on what business you are in, we will have to have a different type of operation or service providing system. Now, there are some typical characteristics of services because many of you probably may be having your businesses in services. Uh, they are intangible. So with that aspect we just discussed. So if the services have to be provided on people or on products, you can't separate. So if you are providing some, hair cutting, the person has to be there. So the service is being provided when the person is there. Heterogeneity, that in a service context, while we design our system, operation system, or when we decide on how the service will be delivered, we have to be very careful that the requirement of each individual may be different. Just take example of a restaurant. different people are going, and each person may have different requirement of what he would like to have. So there is heterogeneity within a same family itself. Four people in a family are going to have dinner. Each four of them may have a requirement of different dishes and different way of cooking also. So there is a lot of, for the same service, variation as far as the service is to be provided to different customers. So whether we are having that training to the people who are providing those services, so that they are more robust to take care of this variability in the need of different customers, and of course the perishability. Perishability in services context, for example, there is a theater, cinema hall. It has a capacity of 100 seats. In a particular show, 80 persons come. Those 20 seats which remain empty. Now you can't have 120 persons in the next show. So that's why we call this as perishable, whether it is in context of hotels, in context of airline services, transport services. These are perishable in nature. So the capacity, once not utilized, you can't reserve it for future. So here, whatever operation system you design, you have to design in such a way that you make maximum utilization of the capacity which you would have created. Of course, there are various techniques on what we call as revenue management. How do you play with price so that you can increase the utilization of the capacity, whether it is in context of airlines, whether it is in context of hotels or restaurants or any type of services. This we know the dynamic pricing we all are experiencing, which we have in the airline services, where the price of the same seat, same class, may change with every seat booked, and even when you are booking a particular seat. So that's the revenue management philosophy technique we use, so that we generate maximum revenues. This is just to give an indication that there is a different degree of intangibility in different types of services. Now it's very important that for successful and for generating profits and businesses, that we have we are able to improve our productivity. So broadly, there are three types of factors at different levels which we talk of, and all these factors have their degree of influence on the productivity of the business. Some are macro factors like economic, social, technological, political, legal, etc., which are in the macro environment. You don't have much control, but then a single change in an economic policy, taxation policy, may considerably have positive or negative influence on your business. But these are the factors over which we don't have much control. But then the factors over which we have control are the organizational level factors. We started our discussion with what type of product we got into. Now, if we have got into a product which has continuous demand, naturally the chances of success will be more. So what type of product we have chosen, that's our decision. What type of management system we have, what type of work culture we are trying to create in the organization, what methods we adopt, and what technology we have chosen. These are all the factors which will have great influence on the productivity of the business, and over which we have control. So we have to take these decisions, which are some of the strategic decision or operational decisions, in a very careful way. Then if you see the innermost circle, this is the individual circle. So what is individual's vision? So this vision is in context of individual. What is that motivates? What is that he sees value in, and what is the level of his skills? All these will have impact on his individual productivity. So there are many people who are self-motivated in the same organization, same environment. We'll find that there are some people who are doing their best, and there are some people who are always grudging. That is the self-motivation individuals have doing their work. So we will have to take care of some of these aspects. I've touched it very superficially, but then broad, I think you are able to get the idea that while macro factors, the environmental factors may have great impact, we need to take care of them, though we may not have such control. But we have to take decisions about organizations in a very careful way, and we have to have people. So we choose our people whom we would like to have, so that they are self-motivated. Now again, depending on the type of business you are in, the type of product you are in, we put them into broadly two types of categories. Supply chain, we all understand, is the management of movement of product right from raw material stage to the final customer. Now, broadly, we can divide into two aspects. The major factor based on which we make this classification is that whether we are preemptively making a product and then supplying to the customer, or we make the product after the order has been received. So they fall into one of these two categories, the supply chains, depending on the timing of their execution relative to the customer demand. Now, whether the customer demand is there and then we produce that product, or we produce product in anticipation, or we semi-process a product and then once the customer order is there, we finish that product. Now all these possibilities are there. This again would depend on the type of business we are in. So if we are in a product of say FMCG type, where the availability is very important, and if a customer goes to buy say a soap and the soap is not available, he wants a particular brand, maybe that he takes some other brand. So this we call as push type of supply chain. That means you anticipate demand and then produce and make the product available in anticipation of the demand. So all these FMCG type of products, commodity type of products and all will come in this category. So here, while you are managing your operations, you'll have to see what is the demand pattern. Based on that, you decide on the inventory level, and based on that, you decide on your production plans. So this we call as push type of category, as the name suggests, that you have produced the product and then you are trying to push it to the market so that the customers buy the product. Then we have the pull type of supply chain, where we receive an order and then we initiate the response. Now there could be two ways here. It's quite possible that we semi-process the product and only the final product is made once we have received the order. We'll briefly see just after this. But the pull concept is, so if you want product entirely to your design, naturally you will give design to the manufacturer and he'll produce to the design. And naturally the whole production activity will be after he has received the order. So this is again we call as a pure pull type of supply chain, where the initiation of production is after the order has been received. So what you are trying to do is to pull customers towards you. So customer comes to you, places order on you, and then you make that product available to him. So this we call as pull type of supply chain. So the basic difference is, push is you are producing in advance and then trying to sell. Pull is that you get an order and then produce that product and supply it to the customer. Now, in many situations, it may not be pure push or pure pull. That means it's not necessary that you complete the product and then make it available. So it's quite possible that you part process the product and then make the product when the order is there. You see a typical fast food restaurant, maybe McDonald's. So the burger and all, they have been half processed. So once a customer goes there and asks for a particular type of burger, so what type of filling he wants, and then the product is made. So the semi-processing has been done, and it is possible in even in garment industry. If you see, you know what type of say if you are into say shirting, so maybe the basic you would have already procured the material, maybe you know the standard sizes, and maybe there's commonality before you change have different designs of the shirts. So till that stage you complete, and as the orders come you make the finished shirt for the customer. So what how much of push or pull again will depend on the type of product. So this, if you see carefully, uh, push, as I mentioned, the complete thing is done in advance. Pull is after the order is received. So if you see, typically, when do you start the activities, whether before the customer order arrives or after the customer order arrives. So even if in a push type, so even if you are manufacturing, say, product which I just gave example of McDonald. So they would have procured the material, they would have done some part processing, and once the order is there, they do the finish processing, and that's how it is possible for them to supply in 1 minute whatever order you place. So this again you have to decide based on the type of product or design you are in, what is the need of the customer and what is the type of product. Naturally, if you are into some sort of eatables, you have to be very careful what type of processes you do in advance of receiving the customer order and what processes you do after the customer's orders have been received. Because the issue here is, you know, this is a very important aspect wherein, so why this pull type of uh, supply chain we try to create, just try to see this. This indicates over a period of time the variation in customer demand. So customer demand, whatever is the product, day to day demand may vary, week to week demand may vary, month to month demand may vary, but this variation may not be very high. But then a retailer has to serve different customers. So if you take some typical FMCG product, now there may be 100 customers visiting the retailer in a week or per day. Now different customers may have different demands. So he'll have to, while he decides to have inventory of those products, he'll have to take care of the demand of those 100 odd customers and then accordingly have to store those items. And that's why the quantity the retailer would store in his retail store, there'll be comparatively greater variation because he'll have to get it from somebody, either a distributor or some manufacturer. But so that again he'll have to bulk the order. That means maybe if he say receive supply every week, he'll have to consolidate the order for a week and then he'll receive weekly consumption. So naturally the variation in the inventory or order size will be different. If you see from distributor angle, now he consolidates demand of different retailers and then supplies to those retailers, and he gets these from manufacturer. So he'll have to further consolidate demand of different retailers, and here again the variation will be very high, and the manufacturer. So manufacturer again has to cater to demands of different distributor. So if you just compare, so you see the customer demand may not be varying very much, but the production levels are varying to a great extent. This we call as bullwhip effect, in the sense that as the time increases from the order placement to the supply to the customer, as you are away from the customer, the variation in demand, variation in the inventory you need to hold would be very high as compared to variation in the customer demand. Because suppose there are 4 stages we just discussed. So customer, the retailer, the distributor, and the manufacturer. And we just saw that at each stage there is consolidation. There is consolidation of at the retailer level, there's consolidation at the distributor level, there is the further consolidation at the manufacturer level. So now this has a risk. We may get into a situation where we are holding excess inventory, and we may get into some situation where the inventory is not enough to meet the customer demand. And this variation between the customer demand and the manufacturer's inventory levels, we call, as I mentioned, as bullwhip effect. Now, how do you reduce on this? Naturally, you'll have to reduce the number of stages. If you see a typical FMCG, supply chain, say Hindustan Unilever, they are supplying some soap, so they may be placing order on some subcontractor who manufactures soaps for them. So they'll place order on that manufacturer. He'll supply to some warehouse of Hindustan Unilever. They may be supplying to some C&F agent or some wholesale distributor who may be supplying to local distributor, who may be supplying to again a bulk retailer, who may be further supplying to a next door mom and pop store. So there may be a big network before the product reaches from manufacturer to the customer. So as the number of stages increase, as we just saw, this variation will further increase. So there are two ways. One is that you reduce on this number of stages, and another is you reduce on the lead time also. Greater the lead time, greater the chances of variation in demand and greater the chances of gap between the inventory and the demand. And other than the facilitation of technology, if e-commerce is becoming very popular today, is because we have been able to reduce this number of intermediary stages. So many times the customer places the order, which if there is a marketplace is directed to the supplier and he supplies the. So normally there is 1 or 2 stages only. And that's why we have been able to reduce the gap between the customer demand and the inventories level you have to hold. And these situations of either excess demand or low demand as compared to excess inventory or low inventory as compared to demand have reduced, and that's why the popularity of e-commerce. So I hope this concept of bullwhip effect is so if we see from manufacturer to wholesaler to retailers, so retailer has some, there may not be much fluctuation in the demand of the customer. The retailer consolidates the demand of customers, so there is some variation. If you move further on right to the wholesaler, the variation further increases. And if you move to the manufacturer, the variation further increases. This is what we call as a bullwhip effect, where the point of holding is at the customer point. And as you see in the bullwhip, the amplitude of its movement will go on increasing as you move away from the point of holding, and that's why we call this as bullwhip effect. So while you are designing the supply system or supply chain for your business, you need to take care of this. How do you reduce on this bullwhip effect? We talk depending on these two types of products that we discussed. One where we had to produce in advance, and there is a continuous demand. All these functional type FMCG type of products, these we call as functional products. So functional products are those products where there is continuous demand, the number of customers are very high, the number of suppliers also naturally then will be very high, and there is a continuous demand. And normally in functional type of products, like we discussed some of the FMCG products, it will be a push type of supply chain where the demand is there, but then you already make the product available either at a retail store or at a store from which the supplies are made. So functional type of products are those products which have a long product life cycle, which have a continuous demand, and that's why and the availability is very important. The customer goes to buy and the product should be available, and that's why we preemptively produce this product and make it available at the retail outlet. Innovative type of products, as I mentioned, where the product is changing very fast, the product life cycle is small, and the demand also may fluctuate. So you introduce a new design of a garment, it may be accepted and suddenly you have a high demand. If you see just the other way, you have introduced a design and that is not liked by the customer, so the demand is much less than what you expected. So there is a very high amount of fluctuation. So this we call as innovative type of products, where the product life cycle may be small and the product changes very fast. So if you see some typical characteristics and if you compare with functional products, that means functional products where the uncertainty is less, innovative product, the uncertainty is high. Product margin will be low here in functional products because there will be so many suppliers also. So there will be competition. So the margins may be low. While innovative products, you are introducing a new design or a new product or a new way of providing a service which the customers like. So the margins may be, you can definitely charge a higher price. Forecast error, that's why in functional products will be low. Innovative products, the reasons I just discussed would be high. Average stock out rates, because the uncertainty is less, fluctuation is less, so stock out rate may be low. Here it may be high. The product is accepted and then you are not able to. So this innovation could be some business environmental situation also. If you just see the type of this pandemic we are having, just see the demand pattern of vaccine. It started sometime in February, March 2020. People were looking for a vaccine to be invented, and it was we developed some indigenous vaccine, and we made it available in March. There was some demand, but it did not pick up, and there were instances where the clinics and the hospitals would wait for whole day and only few people will come for vaccination. Then we had this second cycle and the demand has suddenly. So it's a new product, new situation which is not certain. So demand pattern, the demand variability is very high and the stock out rate also is very high. And that's why the if you are left with inventory because you produced a product in a design which was not accepted, the chances of having those inventory left with you may also be high and you may have to sell at a reduced price. So what type of product service you are in, it will depend on that. So towards the end, this just to give an idea, some of those you would have discussed throughout in this program, but this just consolidation of idea which I took from the data, depending on what type of online business have a lot of opportunity and have at the same time very low investment. Partner with a drop shipper. So you, as I started, you concentrate on your core business, and you have an arrangement third party logistics provider or for various other services, shipper who can transport your goods to your customers. So it could be both. You could be in the core activity of producing a particular product, or you could be in those logistics services. These are services where these are the businesses where you don't need a lot of investment to at least to start with, and you can start your business. Another business, I think, I don't know whether some of you has that, is on-demand printing of the tops and shirts. This also has good potential. Launching your own book. Now, all these, the basic operations strategies will be same. Only thing what you do, what you need to do may vary. Launching your own book, this also has some potential. It may be your own books, or it may be, Flipkart. Whether it is Flipkart, Amazon, they all started with retailing of books only. So you may have your own books, or you may have some collection of books which you would like to market. Create digital products or courses. Last 2 years, EduTech has, the growth has been more than 50%. It has the highest growth in any type of industry. So whether you can, there's big demand today and it is going to stay there. Whether you can create some digital product or courses for some these online courses programs. This has a big demand and a big opportunity, and you don't need much investment. Printed posters, greeting cards, prints, this has been traditional. It still has relevance today. Some NGOs, of course, sell a service. So it's not just selling a product, selling a service, big business. In fact, what if you see, if not directly, but then all these Ubers and Olas and all, what they are doing is trying to facilitate. So people are selling services. Create an online fashion boutique. So there have been very successful examples in Indian context also, and this would always have scope where you create some online fashion boutique. Sell handcrafted and homemade goods. So again, grow an audience you can monetize in multiple ways. Of course, there are various ways of monetization. How do you involve people to pay to you for various types of services? Antiques honor. So there is a particular customer segment who are looking for antiques. So whether you can have that business. Cloud kitchen or bakery. If you see this Swiggy and Zomato and all, so of course they're in the process of having their own cloud kitchens, but they may be looking for partnerships also with other people who are prepared to cook food for them. Online coffee tea shop. So there's a big demand coffee tea, whether you can provide different varieties of tea coffee online. Craft classes online, similar to the educational lines. Interior decoration. I know some people who have started this, our own students. They are trying to start this interior decoration, both on their own, and getting this business also for somebody else. Pet sitting. This again is an increasing business with unit families. They have to go out. So where do they keep their pets? So pet, or even during daytime. So like babysitting, pet sitting also is a business which has a lot of potential. Photography, of course, life coaching, a lot of need there. And in the last 1.5 years, if you have seen, so many YouTubes and all have been created. And of course, there could be programs also of life coaching. So many have developed and very costly. People are prepared to pay good money for this. Online bookstore and app creator. Some of the businesses, that's what I will end my session with, where women have been quite successful, and especially out of these, some businesses may be common with the type of businesses I just showed. Fashion designing, that's where women have been successful and still scope is there. Daycare services, image consultants. So many people are particular about whether they are advertising agencies or very various other users. The scope is increasing where women have a great role because of their inherent creativity. Bakery business, we have seen very successful. Last year we had a IPO also of a lady who started with supplying cakes. So bakery business. Extracurricular activities for kids, we just discussed in the previous slides. Event planner, this again is becoming a big business. Photography, of course, e-commerce platform, product selling, cooking, uh, urban landscape artists. Again, I was discussing with somebody, one of our student who will be passing out this year. She wanted to have, we have small flats, but we want to have a small garden. So one is that small level at the flat level. Another is, of course, through town planning and all. the city urban landscape, and of course freelance writing. This again has a big scope. So that's what I end with. So in this brief time of 1 hour, I tried to cover, it's very important what product or service we get into, which will decide on success of our business and which customers we are going to serve. Some broad aspects which are common aspects. Of course, each business will have its own operation system, its own supply system, but then we try to see broadly what are the aspects we need to see. And the supply chain also, again, depending on the type of product or service we are in, what sort of supply chain we should have, what are those areas we need to concentrate on, and just hint on some of the businesses which may have potential in general and in women in particular. So that's all from my side within the time I was given. And of course, I would have loved to interact and then discuss the specific queries, but with this type of medium, this is the limitation. I wish you all success in whatever enterprises you are running or you are planning to plan to run or open, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I'll be ready to take those.
No questions? Well, thank you so much, sir. I understand in a short span of time, talking about supply chain is not so easy because there's so much to talk and cover about it. But thank you so much for sparing your time and sharing this wonderful knowledge with all of us.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for making part of this program. Wonderful program. Thank you.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Okay.